All right, we'll call this Committee of Adjustment hearing to order. Just before we get started this evening, I'm just going to go through the meeting's protocols tonight for those that are in attendance and those listening at home. We have two applications this evening that will be being heard on two different properties. A couple of quick housekeeping rules. If you have cell phones, can you please place them on silent mode or turn them off? And if coming up to present to the committee, if you could please ask your questions and direct them through the chair and not directly to the person that you're asking the question of. The first order of business that we'll have this evening is to ask if there's any conflicts of interest on the agenda with any of the agenda items this evening, followed by any requests for deferrals or withdrawals. If applicants are coming in online, I will just reiterate that once they get brought into the meeting. The Secretary-Treasurer will then read out the application with a brief overview and staff recommendations. The applicant for the agent will then be asked to come forward. They can go to the podium on the right and have an opportunity to present any additional information they'd like to at that time. Following that, committee members will have the opportunity to ask the applicant any questions that they have, followed by members of the public that wish to speak to the application. Any members of the public wishing to speak to an application will be asked to come forward to state their name and address for the record. Try to limit their comments to 10 minutes and must present all questions and comments pertinent to the application in that time frame. Persons making a presentation may not necessarily be allowed to return again to speak to the same application. Following all comments, the applicant will be afforded some closing comments if desired. The committee will then present a decision in the form of a motion. The motion will be discussed and voted upon. If a vote is tied, a motion will be defeated and a new motion will be made. Motions that are defeated, we will continue to make new motions until we have a decision reached on an application. Notices of decision will only be provided to those persons who leave their names and addresses in writing with the Secretary-Treasurer. There's a sign-in page at the back of the room for that purpose, for those that are in attendance. For those persons viewing online, you can email. Can I leave that with Diana, or should it go to you?
Should go to me.
They can email our acting Secretary-Treasurer, Chris Rome, Did you catch that on the?
I can read it.
Yeah, turn your mic on and say it.
Yeah.
My email address is chris.roome, chris.roome@portcolborne.ca.
Perfect, thank you. Or you can call 905-835-2900 extension 204 immediately following the hearing to leave a message asking for the same. It should be noted that in order to be kept advised of any possible OLT hearings, persons must request to be sent a copy of the committee's decision on an application. So that's the protocol for this evening. I will first ask if there's any conflicts of interest with any of the agenda items this evening. Not seeing any. And I'm assuming that anyone in attendance, there's no request for deferrals or withdrawals of applications this evening. So with that, I will turn to Chris, but I believe the first order of business before we can turn it over to our acting Secretary or Treasurer is that I require a motion to accept Chris as our acting Secretary Treasurer. So I'll ask for that. Angie, can I get a seconder? Eric, all those in favor? That'd be carried. Congratulations, you got a promotion or demotion, depending on how you look at it. So with that being said, I will turn over the first application. Chris, if you can read that out, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the agenda tonight, we have two minor variance applications. Notice of the applications was circulated to the public on September 27th, 2023. The required agencies received notice of the applications on September 19th, 2023. A recommendation report for each application was prepared by planning staff and made publicly available on October 6th, 2023. All correspondence received by October 6th was addressed in the recommendation reports. No further correspondence has been received as of the date of this meeting. Those interested can view the recommendation reports online on the city's website or in person at City Hall. Those interested may also contact planning staff in person by email or over the phone to obtain a copy of the reports. Accommodations for alternative methods of viewing or obtaining the recommendation reports are available upon request. Please note the zoning bylaw currently in effect is the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended, which I will be referring to as the zoning bylaw. Our first application tonight is application A17-23-PC for the lands municipally known as 3921 Second Concession Road in the agricultural residential zone as established in the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw. The applicant, Amy Young, and their agent, Doug Reed, are requesting relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw to permit the construction of an accessory structure, notwithstanding the following. One, that a maximum height of 8 meters be permitted, whereas the maximum height permitted is 6 meters. And two, that the proposed garage be permitted a front yard setback of 25.3 meters, whereas accessory structures are not permitted in the front yard. Given the information in the recommendation report, planning staff recommends application A17-23-PC be granted for the following reasons. One is the application is minor in nature. It is appropriate for the development of the site. It is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. And that concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. Is the applicant here this evening? Please, you can come forward to the podium on the right. There's a little gray bar in the front. There should be a red button in the middle that will turn on the microphone. Perfect. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time with regards to the application?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just 2 meters higher than what the bylaw states because it'll be a storage location for a motorhome and a couple of race cars. It's out front of the house due to a lean-to on the side of my current garage, and it doesn't allow me to go back, so I have to come out that distance out the front. But it is treed all the way around, so it doesn't affect the neighbors or anything like that. So.
All right, very good. Does any members have any questions for the applicant this evening? Not seeing any. Any members of the public that wish to speak to this application? I don't think we have any online requests. So with that, I guess there's no additional comments you want to make since there was no other comments raised. I'll look for someone for a motion. Dave?
Thank you. Application A17-23-PC, matter of the lands legally known as Concession 2, part of Lot 9, being Part 2 on reference plan 59R6967, municipally known as 3921 Second Concession Road, that minor variance application A17-23-PC be granted for the following reasons. The application is minor in nature, as the increase in height from 6 meters to 8 meters will not negatively impact the subject parcel or neighboring properties. The proposed structure is located at a permissible distance from the lot lines, and the increase in height will not produce visibility concerns. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site as the application is being requested to accommodate a permitted use on the subject property. 3, it's desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as the proposal meets the majority of the zoning requirements and will be accessory in nature to the primary dwelling, as the structure will be used for storage of large motor vehicle and is located in a suitable location. 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as the official plan permits accessory structures within the agricultural designation.
Thank you. Can I get a second to that? Angie? Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Opposed? It'll be carried. Thank you. There is a 20-day waiting period, but after that, you should be good to go. Thank you. And Mr. Secretary Treasurer, whenever you're ready for the next application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next item is application A18-23-PC for the lands municipally known as 3638 Fire Lane 12 in the rural residential zone. The applicants, James Sterling and Margaret Penny Sterling, are requesting relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw to permit the construction of an addition and covered porch, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a minimum front yard setback of 7.7 meters be permitted, whereas the minimum front yard setback is 10 meters. Given the information in the recommendation report, planning staff recommends application A18-23-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, the application is minor in nature. It is appropriate for the development of the site. It is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent of the official plan. And that concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. The applicant here this evening, please feel free to come over to the podium on the side. There's a little button right in the middle of that gray bar in front of you. Very good. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
Not really. Mostly just that little covered porch is really just a little covered area just so that we don't get soaking wet when it's raining.
Just a front door with a peak over.
Very good. Is there any questions or comments from any committee members? Is there any members of the public that wish to speak to this application? I'm assuming you're all together. And we don't have anyone online. So with that, I know when I was out on the property on the weekend, and I did meet the property owner come out to see why the strange car was parked in front of their house. I did find it kind of odd that that shed extended out onto the roadway. I did inquire with staff with regards to the fire lane, whether it's public or city property or private property. And based on Niagara Navigator and the records that we have in the city, that is city-owned road allowance. Now, I don't know, I noticed when you pull into Fire Lane 12, it says it's a private laneway. So to be able to keep that shed, and I know this application, the severance of this was joined to the neighboring property was back in 2009. Because I know when I attended the site, it kind of triggered my memory because I sat on the committee back then as well. And I was surprised that that shed, I think, has been there since then. I'm not too sure. But I'm surprised it wasn't brought up at that point. I do know that the city, since that original application versus now, they've had other issues with private laneways, whether they're private, city-owned, so on and so forth. And a few years back, they did a little bit of research and determined which ones were and which ones weren't. According to the records that they have, this laneway is actually owned by the city. So to be able to keep that existing shed where it is, one of the conditions of the application is that you do need to enter into an agreement with the city with regards to an easement or right-of-way encroachment agreement, sorry. I'm not sure what that entails. Is it something that you could just do privately with the staff and basically it's just coming to an agreement that it's actually not completely on your property and so on and so forth, probably maintenance issues and so on and so forth. But so I don't think it's an elaborate thing that you have to go through, but it is there. I'm assuming you don't want to tear it down because it looks like it's been there for a while and it's semi-submerged or
Yes.
Subterranean based on from looking at it. So anyway, so that's just that portion of it. So
we just come in and somebody will tell us what we need to do?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicants. Yeah, you can direct any questions about that to myself. You should have my contact information so I can get you sorted out.
All right.
all right. So with that, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, because this confused me when I was out talking to the applicants. It's city-owned property, but it's a private laneway. Or is it not a private laneway? Because they were telling me that there's a residents association that maintains the fire lane. So now you're saying that it's partially city property or all of it's city property? If either of you,
From my perspective, I don't know the answer to that. I will say that although there is this condition for this agreement, or encroachment agreement, per the staff report, they're saying it is city property. Who maintains it is not really part of our discussion today, but I'm assuming the applicant or the residents association can contact the city and try to resolve that. But
and that's when I started thinking, if it's city property and they need an encroachment agreement, is Committee of Adjustment part and party of encroachment agreements? And if it's not, why is it attached as a condition to a decision that the committee is making?
That one I will
Yeah, sure.
allow to go to you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So a lot to sort of unpack, I suppose, with this one. In essence, no, it's not something that the Committee of Adjustment is able to approve or deny, but just like many of our conditions, that they don't come directly to us. I'm just trying to think of, like, if an archaeological assessment is required, it's not something that comes to the Committee of Adjustment, it's just a requirement after the fact in some applications. You could probably make that argument for a couple other conditions that we've added to other applications in the past. With regards to the ownership, just like from what I was seeing as I was writing the report, as I go onto MPAC system, in which I can pull up the property ownership information for every property in the city, which includes fire lanes. So if I click on fire lane 15 and the name of the owner shows up, I click on fire lane 27, the name of the owner shows up. There's no option for ownership information for fire lane 2, and I can see that off of the Silver Bay Road, I believe it's Silver Bay Road. The road allowance actually continues into fire lane 2. So that's the reasoning behind why I see it as city-owned land. If that is not the case, I'm all ears to discuss that, and that's why I mean the condition may require some rewording, but any way you cut it, the survey clearly shows that shed is over the property line, and an encroachment agreement would be required.
I'll go to Gary first, then Angie, then to the applicant. Maybe they'll answer your question.
Angie might remember, I don't know if Dave would, but there was an exhaustive search a number of years ago to get all these fire lanes, but it also extended into the city for laneways. And there were some that we thought were ours and got turned back to be private, and vice versa. So I guess through you to our planner, Chris, did that not, that wouldn't necessarily be on Niagara Navigator or on MPAC, but it would be in some of our files. And I guess what concerns me more is that if we see it on Niagara Navigator, like, isn't that a trigger to check so that, we don't go and drive around and see what's there, and we'd be exhausting time and resources that. But when something comes up and it piques that, does that not flag in your mind or your staff? And I guess the other thing is, I agree with you though that I think we should make it a condition, and we'll figure out after who owns it, because it still needs to be rectified. But I'm just confused that going forward that we don't rely on our own records for that.
Through you,
I don't know if you can venture a guess on that.
Through
Pretty
you,
loaded
Mr. Chair. It is tough. I mean, like you said, it was some time ago that I think they did all of that sort of record diving, I suppose we'll call it.
I think the chief was involved.
Yeah, to which I don't personally have any knowledge of. I can really only go with the tools that I have at my fingertips here. I mean, the record keeping is a challenge in its own end, and if there was, this is why I say I'm open to the discussion of if it is.
Great, good. Okay.
Then yeah, but to your point, I mean, it clearly needs attention. It's just a matter of how we want to word it or address it in the condition.
Okay, thanks.
I'll go to Angie next.
Thank you, Dan, through you. I had the same concerns. It doesn't sit well with me that we would attach a condition to an agreement when we're not sure about the circumstances. So if we could reword that condition to read that it would apply only in the sense that, only in the case that it were proven the city owns that property. Otherwise, we don't want to nullify a decision that we've made here by putting a condition in that just doesn't fit. So if we could do it that way, I would appreciate that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a really good point, actually, because an encroachment agreement between two private property owners isn't something that we can enforce. The only reason like it was triggered is because, again, we were under the assumption that it was private or city-owned land. Another way to think about this shed as well is that, it's obviously it's located in front of the house, but that's not, it's a legal non-conforming use, so I mean, we would just kind of leave it alone. The only issue it being that it appears to be over city land. So I suppose we could work with the applicant if there's some sort of information that I could be aware of to guide me towards it being private. Then perhaps we could word that into the condition there.
We've had properties down there for almost 30 years. We started on 7, moved to 10, now we're on 12. And through the years, 30 years of being down there, there's always been this fight over who owns the roads. The associations, of course, are very territorial, and it's our property. It's our road. So it was found within, I think, the last 10 years that 7 and 9 are city roads, and the city maintains them. But on 12th, we were told, it's still your road, you maintain it yourself. So we pay to maintain it, and we pay to have it plowed. So we have been looking after that road forever.
We just a couple weeks ago paid $4,000 to have some asphalt work done also. So we collectively we have a fund. We put $200 a year into a fund to maintain that road
And to pay for the plowing
and plowing and so forth.
Okay. Eric, did you have a question?
I guess through you, seeing these type of conditions in my line of work is actually quite common when there's another structure that's going beyond the property line. However, determining whether or not it's private is its own matter. But the city always has the ability, even though that condition may not apply, to determine that that condition is satisfied. So as long as that condition is there, it protects, I guess, the municipality and its due diligence and making sure that everything is acting in accordance with the Planning Act and planning policy.
All right. With that said, any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Because that even confounds me more. So how do you have an encroachment agreement with the city if the land isn't the city's? If it's a private laneway, you can't enter into an agreement with somebody that doesn't own the land.
Fair. Yeah.
So how do you do that if it's not the city of Port Colborne's property? I can't enter into an agreement with them because they don't own it.
All I would say is that we can word the condition that if it is city property,
They must enter into agreement. If it's proven otherwise,
then
that's
condition's met.
perhaps.
To David, sorry, not David, Chris, if it is private road, but it's not their, like the applicant's land, then would they not be obligated to take it off the land either way because it's not their property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, if it's discovered that the roadway isn't theirs, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
It technically becomes a private dispute. So it's like, if I build a shed that's over your property line, it's a matter between you and I. That's it. We can recommend in the condition that a encroachment agreement be registered between the two private property owners, but again, it's not enforceable. It's really just a recommendation.
Gary?
It's just the fact that you paved it and you pay into an association fund that plows it and that. So it has to belong to somebody, so that somebody might be the association
It is.
to which you are a party of.
Yes.
It's a Silver Bay Landowners Association. I guess
Right.
it's been there, that association, for about 70 years.
Right.
And all the cottage owners collectively, for years, have just put, we have a beach fund, we have a road fund, and they put
Right.
money
Right.
towards it.
And nobody's come up to you and said anything about the shed. that it's
No,
collectively
no.
ours and.
We're at the end of the road, and no, it's, because the
Right.
road is technically about 10, 15 feet from it.
Yeah,
because
I
the
saw
road
it,
curves.
yeah, yeah,
Most people are happy about that because they wouldn't have front lawns.
right. Okay, then I think I stand with what the suggestion was, yep, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Looking for a mover. Dave, you did the last ones. If you like, because then you can add the condition appropriately. You can.
Sorry, application A18-23-PC, and in the matter of the lands legally known as Concession 1, part of Lot 10, Plan 823, Lot 13, municipally known as 3638 Fire Lane 12. That minor variance application A18-23-PC be granted for the following reasons. The application is minor in nature as the reduction from the existing 8.2 meter setback to the proposed 7.7 meter setback constitutes a minor change to the building footprint, and as a request for relief maintains an adequate amount of spacing from the street and still maintains the parking requirement for the dwelling. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site as the addition does not propose a further encroachment of the setback and still permits the required amount of parking on the subject property. And the proposed covered porch does not pose an impediment to the function of the site. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. As the proposal meets the majority of the zoning requirements, and the subject lands will still maintain the required amount of parking as the driveway is located on the east side of the property and the front yard setback is acceptable as the building location is currently existing. 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as the official plan permits detached dwellings within the rural designation. And do you want to say that's it, or following condition?
You can add the condition if you want, but if said land is, road allowance is city property, then they must enter into an encroachment agreement.
Okay. So the staff had attached 2 conditions. One, that the applicant either relocates the existing front yard shed to a location that meets the applicable zoning requirements, or enters into an encroachment agreement to the satisfaction of city staff. And 2, in the event that any trees are proposed to be removed, the tree protection plan must be prepared to the satisfaction of regional staff. I do not believe, in conversation with you, that any trees are going to be removed for the addition of the front porch.
No.
No, okay. So with regards to the condition that the applicant either relocates the existing front yard shed to a location that meets the applicable zoning requirements, or enters into an encroachment agreement to the satisfaction of city staff, conditional upon the lands, the road allowance being owned by the city of Port Colborne. Is that good with everybody?
Yeah. Can I get a seconder to that? Angie? So, pretty clear?
Yes.
Good? Okay. All right. So with that being said, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That'd be carried. Thank you. There is a 20-day waiting period, but other than that, you should be able to start the process of the building permit if you haven't already, but you won't get it for that 20 days. All right, thank you.
Just one quick question. Staff will do the research for the ownership of the laneway and contact the applicants. We will reach out to them. Is that so that, because the city is the only one that's going to know what the result is, so we should reach out to contact them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can try my best to see what resources I have available. It may require the help of the applicant in order to get some of this straightened out, but I will reach out to the applicant.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that, Chris.
All right, that's it for the applications this evening. Is there any other business? Not seeing any.
Schedule for next year.
Oh, was that in the package?
No, it wasn't. I sent it in the email with the resolutions.
Oh, sorry, I missed that part. So there is a schedule of meetings for 2024.
No actual physical schedule in the package, just that we could vote on the
Third Wednesday of every month?
second
Wednesday of every month?
of January.
Okay. So, per Chris's comments and email, basically, we're looking at maintaining the second Wednesday of every month in 2024, with the exception of January, which will be the third Wednesday of the month. If I can get a mover and a seconder, Gary to move it, Angie to second it. Any questions or comments? I think it's worked out well going to the Wednesdays, and it kind of avoids having to shift when there's a Monday holiday and stuff like that. So maybe what we could do is just for the next meeting, we can finalize that schedule and we can just adopt it. But if everyone's good with that, Dave?
Just for clarification for the two late members today, I apologize. 6 p.m., right?
6 p.m. Unless you...
No, just because the invite I got said 6:30.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
in my calendar. So, anyways, yeah. So just for clarification, I really hate coming in late. So 6 p.m.
No problem.
Right?
Yes, 6 p.m.
Okay.
Unless you want to move it to 6:30. 6 is good? Okay. 6 p.m. it is. So with that, all those in favor of the schedule? That's carried unanimously. Can I get a mover and a second for the August 9th Committee of Adjustment hearing minutes? Mover and a seconder, Angie, Gary. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That'd be carried. And with that, we will stand adjourned.